In Redford Township, Michigan, there exists a Little Red Schoolhouse built in 1874 and is the last remaining building from the railroad towns that line the tracks going through Redford and Livonia. It is in peril. Is Redford Township number 9 schoolhouse a historical building?
Well, you know, I've lived in the community for about 35 years now, and I have always thought this was a historical building. Every day when I drive by it, I think it represents the township and our small community, and I think it's a shame that it will be turned into a parking lot.
Question is, are you from Redford Township?
Yes.
And this here is the Wade House, built in 1831. It's the oldest residence in the township.
Okay.
And this is the Little Red Schoolhouse, built in 1874. And this is the little schoolhouse in front of the post office.
Okay.
So the question is do you think this is a historical building?
Yes.
Do you think the Little Red Schoolhouse is a historical building?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I would consider that historical as well.
I would say yes.
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
You know it's a historical building.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm.
Yes.
I'm Rochelle Balcom, and I have a degree in historic preservation from Eastern Michigan University. In looking at the poster, we see that there are two significant historic buildings. One of them is the Wade House, which was built in 1831, but has had significant additions on. And then the one-room school, which was built in 1874 and had an addition put on in the 1940s. The fact that there's a significant difference in years really doesn't make any difference. An historic building is an historic building. And according to the guidelines, both the state guidelines and the national guidelines for preservation, the structure simply has to be over 50 years old, and it is considered historic.
With these additions, are these additions, the poured concrete, the concrete blocks, the plumbing, the electrical, are they period for 1830, 1840 for these buildings?
No, but many of these buildings had basements when we collected the buildings. They weren't necessarily built when the buildings were built. They told us with the meeting house that they had jacked the building up and then they had shoveled out so that they could have a basement under it.
So with all these
they could put a furnace in.
So with all these upgrades to make sure that the building lasts, would these buildings still be considered historical?
Absolutely. These buildings were all more than 50 years old. They all had significance that made them meet the criteria for being a historic district. These buildings are all local historic districts.
Hi, this is Cheryl Vatcher Martin. How are you doing today? I have a graduate degree from the University of Michigan in education. I grew up in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. I lived in a historic home. History has surrounded me my entire life. And this is one of the smallest schoolhouses in Michigan, one-room schoolhouse in Marquette, Michigan, circa 1880. So this school would have been built a little bit after the Redford Township schoolhouse, and I don't know how they could have fit all those kids in there, but this is an authentic picture, and obviously there is probably no schoolhouse left. But I'm so glad that I have this picture to preserve history. You have the opportunity to save this schoolhouse in Redford Township. It is historic. There is no other explanation other than historic building. Thank you.